It was one of the moments where Verity smiled. But this morning, the unease inside her was stronger. No matter how perfect everything seemed, something felt off. Small things, the wind always blowing at the same speed, the birds never making a mistake as they flew, the constant peace and harmony among people. These thoughts gnawed at Verity's mind. That day, she met up with her friends. Cain and Aaron were her closest companions, with whom she often went on walks. But this time, there was something different in Verity's eyes. "Verity, what's wrong? You've been distant lately," Aaron said, carefully studying her. There was concern in her eyes. Aaron was always the cheerful one who looked out for Verity, but her silence was making Aaron uneasy. Verity took a deep breath. "Do you notice it too? Everything is so perfect. Can a world really be this flawless? What if we're just prisoners here?" she asked. Cain laughed heartily. "Verity, are you going off into those strange thoughts again? This place is like paradise. Why would you think something's wrong?" Cain replied with a carefree tone. He was someone who typically believed things at face value, not overthinking the possibilities behind this world. Verity shook her head. "I don't know. It feels like there's something I'm supposed to remember. Like this place isn't real." Her voice trembled as she spoke. It was the first time she openly expressed the thoughts she had been suppressing for so long. Aaron took Verity's hand. "I don't know what's going on, but maybe you just need a break. Clear your mind. Don't think too much, or it'll consume you," she said softly. For a moment, Verity considered Cain's words. Maybe he was right. This world was far from chaos. But the voice inside her wouldn't be silenced. Something was being overlooked. No matter how perfect this world was, there was a deep uncertainty about what was real. Later, Verity closed her eyes and tried to listen to her mind. She felt that something was hidden beneath this paradise. The unease inside her was growing stronger. Taking a deep breath, Verity turned back to her friends. "There's something wrong here. Don't you feel it? There are things that keep repeating. The wind is always the same. The birds always fly in the same direction. Could we be inside a simulation?" she asked. Cain stopped and smiled. "Maybe it feels that way because this world is so perfect. But I'm sure it's just our minds playing tricks on us," he said. Verity, however, wasn't satisfied with Cain's response. The voice inside her kept growing louder. She had no choice but to pursue the truth. No matter how perfect this world seemed, she wouldn't find peace until she discovered what was real. Verity's doubts grew stronger with each passing day. Something unseen was pushing her to confront the truths behind this world. It had become impossible to escape these feelings. That night, she had the same recurring dream again. Cracked asphalt roads, crumbling buildings, a dark and gloomy sky. The bleakness and coldness of the dream left a strong impression on Verity's mind. Yet, these images felt strangely familiar to her, as if they were hers. When she awoke from the dream, her breath was uneven. As soon as she opened her eyes, the greenery and peace around her seemed even more fake. Deep in her heart, a memory surfaced. The image of the real world was etched into her mind. This place now looked like a falsehood, like a stage set in a theater. Verity immediately decided to meet with her friends Cain, Aaron, and Odell. Only after hearing Verity's concerns did they begin to consider that she might be right. Aaron, who usually had boundless energy, looked as if she had lost her spark. "Verity, I had a dream about you last night. We were together, and we were heading to that place you call the real world. But it was terrifying. Why are we having these dreams?" she said, her voice trembling slightly. Verity took a deep breath. "I don't think these dreams are a coincidence. Maybe there's something controlling this world. We're just puppets enjoying this virtual paradise," she said. Cain, with his hands in his pockets, looked around. "So what if this is a virtual world? Do you really think you can find something better? Are you sure you want to go back to the real world?" "Surviving there would be difficult," he said, but there was a hint of doubt in his voice. Verity shook her head. "We might all be prisoners here, Cain. This peace is just an illusion. If this world is a fake paradise, then we're nothing more than actors in a play," she said firmly. Odell, who had been silent until now, took a deep breath and began to speak. "There's something I need to tell you," he said in a low voice. Everyone turned to him. "A few weeks ago, I discovered a database. I haven't told anyone because I wasn't sure what it was. But I noticed something. There's an entity other than us. It was moving through the system. Something independent of us. It was watching us. Verity's eyes widened. This proves that there's some kind of force controlling this virtual world. A cult, right? They're keeping us trapped in this virtual paradise.
Odell met Verity's gaze.
I don't know. But this database was something I encountered when I dove deep into the system. If you want, I can show you. Kane was still skeptical, but also curious. If this database is real, is there a way to return to the real world? He asked. Verity smiled faintly, but her eyes held seriousness. Maybe we can find a way out. But it won't be easy. This cult will do everything to keep us here, she said. Aaron spoke hesitantly, still unsure. But what if, when we go back, the real world is truly a hell? If this place is a paradise, why risk it? Verity understood Aaron's worry. This place is a false paradise. We are puppets here. The truth, no matter how harsh, can bring back freedom. Once you see the artificial nature of this world, you can never stay the same, she said. The group fell silent, each of them facing their own fears. Verity understood Aaron's concerns, and she accepted Kane's doubts. But returning to the real world had become a necessity. The reality that a cult controlled this virtual world was now laid bare before them. Verity made her decision. I won't let this go. Odell, we'll examine that database. Even if we can't find an exit, at least we can unmask the ones who control this world, she said.
Odell nodded. Il t'écouterai.
But it could be dangerous. If the cult notices us, they could completely wipe us out, he said. Kane took a deep breath. Let's do it, then. Let's find out what we're really dealing with, he said. Verity's determination had given him courage. Verity looked at her friends. We're all in this together. To find the truth. Are you ready? She asked. One by one, they nodded. They knew they were about to embark on a difficult journey. But now, it was impossible to turn away from the pursuit of truth. Odell led the way, with the others following behind, deeper into the virtual paradise. This area was seldom visited by people. The vibrant flower gardens, tranquil ponds, and stunning landscapes were replaced by increasingly faded and complex digital codes. Here, everything was less colorful, sharper, colder. This was no longer the surface of paradise, but the depths of the system monitored by the cult. Verity glanced around. This place is really unsettling. It feels like a faulty segment of a program, she said. Kane nodded, observing the unfamiliar digital fluctuations. It's like a place even its creators have neglected. There must be a reason it's kept hidden, he said. Aaron anxiously looked over her shoulder. I don't know what's wrong here, but I feel like something is off. It's as if someone is watching us, she said. Odell was fully focused on the area where the database was located. We're close, he said, his voice sharp and focused. We'll reach the system error I saw from here. But be careful, as the cult might be monitoring everything. Verity knew Odell was right. She clenched her fists and steeled herself. Fear was rising within her, but she also felt excitement. They were one step closer to the truth. After a while, they arrived at a dark passage. This passage was completely disconnected from the surface paradise. Digital fluctuations flickered like a faulty television screen. Kane stopped upon seeing the passage. This place is nothing like the areas we passed before, he said. Odell approached the passage and opened a panel. While entering a series of complex codes, his lips were pressed together. Verity and the others watched him silently. After a few seconds, a light emanated from the panel, and the wall before them opened. Inside was a dark room. Odell stepped back. Are you ready to go in? He asked. Verity took a deep breath. We're ready, she said. Upon entering, they were faced with a massive screen. The screen appeared completely black, but data streams moved within it. The data streams almost seemed to be alive, as if controlled by an intelligence. Odell walked up to the screen and unplugged a cable. This is the core of the entire virtual world. Data is processed here, but there's also an observer here, he said. The cult might be watching and directing us from this place. Aaron looked at the screen with fearful eyes. What does that mean? Are they watching us all the time? She asked. Odell shook his head. Probably. They might know more than we think. If we try to find an exit from here, we risk awakening them, he said. Kane gritted his teeth.
So wat dovido?
If the cult is watching us, they'll figure out our next move in no time, he said. Verity stepped forward. First, we need to divert their attention. We have to mislead the cult. Odell, can you access the system? She asked. Odell knelt to connect to the computer. I can insert an error into the system and draw their attention elsewhere. But it's risky. If they notice me, they'll erase us from here, he said. Verity knelt beside Odell and looked into his eyes. We don't have another option. If you can buy us a few minutes, we might be able to find the exit, she said. Odell was encouraged by Verity's determination and nodded. His fingers moved quickly over the keyboard as he began inserting an error into the system. The others held their breath, waiting for him to succeed. After a while, a small error message appeared in the corner of the screen. Odell smiled. Okay. I've redirected their attention to a different area. But this won't provide a long-term illusion. We need to hurry, he said. Verity quickly turned to Kane and Aaron. If Odell's distraction works, it will attract the cult's attention. We need to move towards the exit during this time. If we can't mislead them, we'll be trapped here, she said. Kane stepped forward, clenching his fists. Then let's do what we need to do immediately. We have to return to the real world as soon as possible, he said. Aaron was still hesitant. What if the cult catches us? What if we're completely erased here? She asked, her eyes filled with anxiety. Verity lightly touched her shoulder. If we don't try, we'll be trapped here forever. We'll be slaves in this fake paradise. Is that what you really want? She asked. Aaron took a deep breath and nodded. All right. Whatever happens, I'm with you, she said. Odell had successfully accessed the system. His eyes locked onto the computer for a moment. Verity, I found the exit. This data stream will get us out, he said. Verity turned to the others and signaled with her head. Let's get out of here, she said. Kane, Aaron, and Verity quickly followed the data stream toward the exit. However, just then, a figure emerged from the screen. A digital entity with glowing red eyes was watching them, as if it were a sentinel of the cult. Kane pulled back. What is that? He shouted, his voice filled with panic. Verity stared at the figure. It might be a cult observer. They'll try to stop us. We need to move fast, she said. The figure rapidly approached them. However, Odell quickly made another move and inserted another error into the system, causing the figure to freeze momentarily. Now! Odell shouted. Follow the data stream. Hurry! Verity, Kane, and Aaron followed Odell, diving into the data stream. As lights flashed around them, the digital figure continued to follow them. Verity's heart raced, but there was no turning back now. The real world awaited them. As they ran through the data stream, the surrounding code began to narrow into a tunnel-like form. Lights flickered rapidly, and an annoying buzzing filled their ears. Verity, Kane, Aaron, and Odell continued to move forward without stopping. However, the digital overseer was still looming over them. It could catch up at any moment and trap them completely in this virtual hell. Kane was out of breath, his eyes frequently darting behind him. This thing is speeding up, he said, his voice frantic. Verity, suppressing her own panic, replied, Keep going, Kane. We can get out of here. Odell noticed an anomaly in the data flow ahead. Stop, he shouted and suddenly halted. The others abruptly stopped and looked at him. The part of the data flow in front of them was corrupted. The digital tunnel was fluctuating, with intermittent disruptions. It's closing up. The cult is trying to trap us, Odell said, his eyes wide with fear. Aaron spoke with a tense voice. What do we do? Is there another way? Odell quickly scanned the surroundings, panic evident in his eyes. He spotted a tear in the data flow. Maybe that gap, he said, pointing to a digital fissure on the side of the data stream. It could be a sort of passage. It might lead us to another area. Kane hesitated. What if it's a trap too? What if it erases us completely? He asked. Verity took a deep breath. What if we stay here? The overseer will catch us and we'll have no chance, she said. At that moment, the overseer, a digital entity, appeared at the entrance of the tunnel. Its bright red eyes were fixed coldly on the group. Digital ripples surrounded it, its presence radiating a disruptive force. Verity could hear its rapid approach. Odell, how much time do we have? Verity asked. Odell's voice trembled.
None.
We need to move now, he said. Verity turned to Kane and Aaron. We have no choice. We have to go through that gap, she said determinedly. Kane nodded and held his breath. All right. We're going together, he said. Odell took the first step towards the gap. He was surrounded by a bright light and then suddenly vanished. Verity, Kane, and Aaron immediately followed, jumping into the gap. The passage felt like a vortex pulling them into light. The surrounding code was rapidly unraveling. When they opened their eyes, their location had completely changed. They were now in a place far different from the previous digital paradise. The surrounding walls were dark and cold. This area was entirely made up of raw data, shapeless and void of any heavenly ambience. Verity took a deep breath. Where are we? She asked, her voice echoing. Odell looked around and examined the compressed data flows. This is one of the deep code layers of virtual reality. This must be a place directly controlled by the cult, he said. Kane was unsettled by the dark, threatening atmosphere. What do we do here? It doesn't look like an exit, he said. Odell shook his head. It's not an exit, but it could be a path to the cult's control center. If we can get through here, we might have a chance to completely shut down the system, he said. Aaron approached Odell nervously. What if the cult finds us? Can they stop us? She asked. Odell thought for a moment. If they find us, we'll be completely erased. But we'll try to mislead them this time. We can overload the entire system and confuse the overseers, he said. Verity trusted Odell's determination. How do we do that? She asked. Odell pointed to the data stream. We'll manipulate this code. If we reverse the data flow, all the AI circuits controlled by the cult will become chaotic, and their system could crash. This will buy us time and might give us a chance to exit the system, he said. Kane scanned the data flow with his eyes. All right. What do we need to do? He asked. Odell quickly input several commands and adjusted some code lines on the screen. We need to reverse the code completely. It will create a delay of a few seconds, but it will disrupt the system's balance, he said. Verity, Kane, and Aaron carefully followed his instructions. As they worked to adjust the data flow with their devices, they were constantly worried about when the overseers might find them. The code on the screen was changing rapidly, and lights began to flicker around them. Just then, one of the dark overseers reappeared. The digital entity emerged in the void around them and started moving directly towards them. Kane shouted in panic, "They're here again. How much longer do we have?" Odell focused on the screen, responding, "Very little time. Keep going." Verity gritted her teeth and continued working. As she tried to fix the code quickly, the tension inside her was rising. The overseer watched them menacingly, as if ready to completely annihilate them with its next move. Finally, Odell took a deep breath. "Okay, I've reversed the code," he said. He pressed a button, and for a moment, the surroundings were engulfed in intense light. The overseer froze for a moment, then fragmented into digital data and dispersed into the void. Verity took a deep breath. "Did we do it?" she asked.
Odell nodded.
"We've crashed the system. Now we need to head for the exit. But we have to hurry." Once they realize the crash, their efforts to regain control will be more aggressive, he said. Kane, though relieved, was still anxious. "Let's go. We need to get out of here immediately," he said. Verity, Kane, and Aaron quickly followed Odell. The entire system was in chaos, but they were a step closer to the exit. Their only hope was to escape this virtual world and return to the real world, but the cult's power was not yet completely weakened. Curious about how this thrilling adventure between the collapse of the virtual world and the escape to the real world will continue? How will Verity, Kane, Aaron, and Odell face the challenges and fight their way out of this digital hell? How effective will the cult's final move be? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications to experience thrilling moments with every new episode and stay updated on the latest developments. Be sure to like our video and share your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback inspires us and helps shape our story.